We're recording now, everyone. And webinar is now streaming on LiveTube, live on YouTube. It's done. We're recording now. Okay. And I'm going to just close it. Now streaming on LiveTube. Okay. So I think we're good. And now I'm going to put up. Okay, so 7:30.
Yes.
Are you recording, Jill? Hit the record button on the bottom there. Do you see it? If not, I can do it for you.
Oh, I have it up here. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I hit it. Record to the cloud. Got it. Okay. Do you see that it's recording?
Yes.
It should be recording now. Okay. So it's 7:30. So let's get started. You're getting Matt in, Cal? All right.
Yeah, send it to him.
Second. Just 1 second. Okay. Okay. Statement of adequate notice. So pursuant to New Jersey. I'm sorry?
No,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I have Matt on the line. Are you able to send the link to Matt? Okay. He's saying that he still doesn't have a link.
I just sent it. I just sent it.
Okay,
It's
sorry.
Like, like 30 seconds ago.
Okay. All right. I'm going to start because this part is routine. Okay. Pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act and JSA 10-4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by advertising such notice in the Home News Tribune, the Asbury Park Press, the board office, the schools, and on Cablevision Channel 118 and Verizon Fios Channel 24, and by filing such notice with the township clerk. This meeting was scheduled for Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. The board will take formal action on payment of bills and other agenda items. Mr. Mara?
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. The Old Bridge Township Board of Education acknowledges that the law of this state establishes that members of the public, including members of the board, have the right to record public board meetings using audio or video recording devices, provided that that act of recording does not interfere with the business of this public board meeting. Therefore, the board makes it known that any such recording is to be considered the private recording of the individual and in no manner represents the official record of this board. The board therefore takes no responsibility for such private recording and completely disavows any future use.
Okay, roll call, Mr. Mara?
Ms. Burns,
Here.
Ms. Callie,
Here.
Mr. DePrima,
Here.
Mr. Dunn,
Here.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Here.
Mr. Giordano,
Here.
Mr. Silikowski,
Here.
Mr. Weber,
Here.
Mr. Carroll.
Here.
Quorum exists.
Okay, so I'm going to start sharing the agenda now. Can everyone see that? And if we can all raise, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And oops, hold on, right there. Okay, if we can all just stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Go back to my agenda. Okay. Okay. Code of Ethics Corner. Ms. Callie, were you going to read that?
The board member will uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations of the State Board of Education and court orders pertaining to schools. Desired changes shall be brought about only through legal and ethical procedures.
Thank you. All right, we have our district goals for 2021. Now, it's the approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
I'll move it.
Ms. Ellis Foster, can I have a second?
Giordano, second.
Sal Giordano. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Callie,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Abstain.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
Okay, next we have our report of the student representative to the board. I believe I saw him on, where is he? Where's Dan?
I'm here.
There you are. Hi, Dan.
Hi. Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Hi. Just wanted to say hi to everybody again. I know I wasn't at the last one, so I'm here. As you may know, my name is Daniel Rita, and I'm the Old Bridge High School 2020 to 2021 school president. Staying strong through this virtual year, we have been making the most of what we can and just every day reminding ourselves that we are going to get through this. And we've already been doing great stuff, and it's just more stuff to come. And just a reminder that we are always here for everyone if anyone needs anything ever. In order to stay better connected, Senate students have been breaking up into 7 subcommittees, each with their own main title, in order to come up with new ideas and events quickly and efficiently, meant for a specific category. And some of those are academics, fundraising, school spirit, stuff like that. The committees have been meeting virtually for the past week, and the rest of this week we'll be finishing up those committees. And they've just been introducing themselves to everybody else in those specific committees and brainstorming some ideas to just get started. Currently, members of Senate, as well as other various clubs in the high school, are pledging to sponsor a hanger as a way to collect coats for a coat drive being called Every Hanger Needs a Coat. By sponsoring a hanger, you or your club would be in charge of putting a coat onto that hanger as a donation to someone who needs it. Keep your eye on the Twitter page, as we will be introducing times and dates to drop off those coats over the next few weeks. Jars for Bryce are still out at multiple stores around Old Bridge, so make sure to just keep an eye out for them whenever you may be out shopping. To date, we have raised over $2,500 for him and his family, and a special thank you to just all those local businesses who have left that jar out and continue to do so. The Senate board has continued to meet virtually weekly in order to keep coming up with new events and activities, bringing us together while we are apart. You can keep up with all the new and exciting events by following us on Twitter @SenateOB. And as always, you got this, Old Bridge, and we got you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. Okay, does anybody have any questions for Dan? Okay, so.
Dan, can I just have Joe, can I just have a comment? Dan, first of all, great job. The jars for Bryce, how often is your organization or any organization doing the pickups for that?
We check in every now and then for some of them. Obviously, some places aren't going to get as much money as others, but we've been keeping up with them. We still have all the locations that currently have them, and people have just been checking in.
Okay, I was in an establishment. I don't want to say online, but I'll talk to Mr. Sasso or Ms. Fauzi tomorrow, and it just had a lot of large bills in it. So I just don't want something to happen. So I think when it gets to that point when there's really large bills in it, that someone should pick it up.
Yep.
All right, I'll talk to
make sure
I'll talk to Dr. Sasso tomorrow.
All
We
right.
want to make sure it all gets to Bryce. Okay. All right. Excellent. Okay. So the next up is recognition. So,
Well,
Mr.
thank you,
Sleep,
Madam President.
go ahead.
I'm going to kind of, I have superintendent's report right after recognition. We're going to kind of do them together
Okay.
because this is a very special month. This is Board of Education Recognition Month in January. Governor Murphy also recently recognized all the Board of Education members in the state of New Jersey during this month. And we were going to do the same. Now, normally what we would do is we'd have students prepare, come in, maybe sing a song or present our board members with something. But obviously, during COVID, we all have to adapt to new normals. So that did not stop them. And I want to thank Ms. Keeler, our art department, and our wonderful students for assisting me in putting this together for you. So without further ado, if we could first get some fun facts about being a board member, and then you'll see some great recognition pictures and cards they made for you. Thank you very much.
All right. You want me to start the movie?
Go ahead.
All right. Okay.
So I hope you enjoyed that, and I will try to get some of that artwork to our board members so they can see them personally, and hopefully we can maybe have some of those hung in our office or in our conference room once we get back to having live meetings. I do want to congratulate the board for getting certified. I know maybe a historian on the board could say if that's ever happened before. I know since I've been in the district, I don't think that has been an accomplishment of the board. It takes a lot of work and teamwork to get that done, because you can see here that you need 16 credits in group training over that 4-year period, a full day retreat work, adopting a wellness policy, and a lot of work just within our legal department and all others. So I know by going through the process, it took a lot of time and nights and weekends away from the board. So I want to congratulate them. And I have to say that's why Miss Lent was in the slideshow. She was part of the board that accomplished that. So she deserved to be recognized by that. So the board that was in place for the 1920 school years is when that was accomplished. So thank you to everyone who made that possible. Congratulations to our board members. And, speaking on behalf of all district employees, thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much. It was a really nice tribute. Thank you to all the students that made all that artwork. Thank you.
I saw in the first slide, I wanted people to recognize, because it's a misnomer out there. A lot of times people say, you know, the board is not paid for their work and their hours that they do. It is a volunteer, elected volunteer position. So again, thank you for all that you do. If we could go into the superintendent's report, I would love if you could bring up the schedule of attachments, the last 4 pages.
Yes.
That would
Let me
be
just find it.
inclusive of an item scheduled for the board to act on tonight. And that is adopting calendars for the 21-22 and 22-23 school year.
Okay. Can you see it? Does everybody can see it?
Okay, I can't see the bottom of that one, but so I don't think this, so yeah, keep going up to the first one. So scroll up.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
and
I
one
thought I
more.
was at the top.
Okay, there
Nope,
you go.
that's it.
Back down, there you go.
There you go.
And the board
Can everyone
members
see that?
should have this in their printouts for the schedule of attachments. So the committee, which is in part of our instructional council, they bring in parents, people from the community to work on this as well, presents usually 2 calendars per each school year to myself and to the board for consideration for adoption. This would be their first choice for the 21-22 school year. The choices are pretty consistent. The dates are pretty consistent through both calendars, except for September and June. If you look at September, it would have both in-service days. We have 3 in-service days by contract with the OBEA. They would be on, the first 2 would be on September 1st and 2nd. And then the 6th, 7th, and 8th would be inclusive of Labor Day and Rosh Hashanah over those 3 days. The students would come back on the 9th for their first day of school. And that would, with 2 snow days built in, 2 emergency weather days. And again, the legislation hasn't changed for us to say, well, we're going to do remote in the future. Only during this public health crisis and the executive orders are we allowed to use remote days during weather-related normal closures. So in future years, the executive order will not be there, and we would still have to use weather-related closure days unless the law is somehow changed that we could learn remotely on those days. I know there's a lot of varying opinion on that decision as well. So in June of 2022, if both snow days were used, we would be leaving school on the 21st. So if we go to the next calendar, this would be 21-22, option 2 from the group. And you could see that the only difference here is that the in-service days are still on the 1st and 2nd. However, the students would come back for an learning day on the 3rd of Friday, and then have Labor Day and Rosh Hashanah, 2 days of Rosh Hashanah off, and then return to school on the 9th. The reason why this is the second choice is because obviously it creates an inconsistency in the opening of the school year for students and staff to come in and then have almost another week off. The committee felt there would be better use of time to have the students come back on the 9th, and it really only changes the outcome of the school year to just Monday, the 22nd, if we use both snow days. Now, there's an option that we wouldn't even use, we might not use them, we would be getting out on the 16th or 17th. But that would be the only change in that calendar. I would like to open to the board during my superintendent's report. Any questions on 21-22 options 1 or 2?
Well, I mean, if I look at the options with September, I mean, I think it makes sense to wait for all the holidays to be over and then have the students back. It just seems a little bit more consistent for that. And I know we always try to get out as early as we can in June because of the heat. And then it, like you said, and sorry, you did say this, that if we do have extra days, leftover snow days, we'll use them at the end of the year.
Right, so the last day of school is inclusive of the 2 snow days built in, so, you know, there's not additional days on the back end unless we use both snow days. And went through our spring recess days that are in there as well that we would forfeit in event of a really bad winter season. But as you can see, the only real difference in these is just really a 1-day difference between a Tuesday and a Monday being last day of school. Obviously, it impacts graduation. So the high school's first day they could possibly graduate is on Wednesday, the 22nd in option 1, which we do not believe would be a problem. And in option 2, the first day they can graduate is on the 21st. There are legal code regulations for high school graduation having to be after the last day of school, and also transportation requirements.
I have a question. Can we change graduation? As I recall, it's not that easy.
Change it, what do you mean change what, the date of it?
Like you said, yeah, like if the last day of school, if we go with the second option and the last day of school is the 20th, then graduation could be the 21st. With the first option, the last day of school being the 21st and graduation would be the 22nd. If we don't use our snow days and we take those days off the back end of June.
Mm-hmm. No, what I'm saying is once you adopt the calendar, we've already had contact with the venue which we use for graduation, and they don't commit to a day, it's more than 6 months in advance anyway, but they pencil you in, and we would be, and then they confirm it with you. It becomes much harder to get a confirmation on a Thursday or a Friday because of their concert venues. Wednesdays are not as good as Tuesdays, and Tuesdays are not as good as Mondays, but we believe through our conversations that we will be able to secure the venue for a Wednesday. But that would be if with the board adopting the calendar for, the board adopting the calendar, and we would put it in. If they don't, if they went to option 2, then we would secure the graduation date for most likely the 21st. But we wouldn't change it after that. I'm not talking about changing it somewhere down the line. Once you adopt the calendar, then we'll.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you said.
Right.
I think that if we were able to get out early because we didn't use our snow days.
No. Once the snow dates really, you have no difference on what the date is. Once the date is set, the date is set, whether we get out 2 days earlier or not because of lack of use of snow days.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions on 21, 22, if you'll indulge me to go to 22, 23.
Can everybody see that?
So the 22, 23 school year doesn't have the challenges in the beginning of September that we had before. It's more of a traditional start. First and second would be in-service day. Labor Day is on the 5th, and the 6th is with school opening for students, and the first fall break would be on the 26th, 27th for Rosh Hashanah, and I am under the belief that Yom Kippur falls on a weekend date during that time. That is in option 1, and the last day of school would be the 16th of June, with both snow days being accounted for. Again, if we do not use the snow days, then the last day of school would be the 14th. We would probably shoot for graduation on Monday or Tuesday of that following week at the high school. The option 2 for 22, 23, the only difference is that the in-service day is after Labor Day, and the 6th and 7th would be the in-service days, and the 8th would be the first day back for our students, but it would push the end of the school year to the the following week, possibly if we use both snow days, having the last day of school be the 20th and the Wednesday, past graduation on the 21st on a Wednesday again. Again, the majority of the committee is made up of educators, administrators, supervisors, and teachers. And, I applaud them for looking at the time in which they, take advantage of the best school days possible, and having the earlier release of the end of the school year, summer recess beginning earlier, and not trying to, wait until after Labor Day to get the in-service days in. I do agree with them that pragmatically, this is the better option for educational use days in option 1.
I'm fine with option 1 on both of them. They look good to me.
Any questions and or concerns from any board members?
Anybody? I mean, I personally like it where it's there's most consistency, where there's not a lot of breakup, so wherever there's the most consistency is what I prefer, from an education standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm. So not hearing many objections, or what I would do is ask that when this item comes up on the agenda, I believe it's under board business, that our Mr. Mara proposed a question with Mr. Pardon so that they're adopting option 1 on both 21, 22, and 22, 23.
I mean, it's nice for, it's nice to see June 16th as the last day of school. I feel like we haven't seen that in a long time. So, does anybody want me to scroll up or down to look at anything? No. Okay. We good?
Okay.
Anybody have questions? Okay.
Those items conclude my superintendent's report.
All righty. And that was also progress towards goals, right?
Yes.
Any correspondence, Mr. Mara? Where are you? Mr. Mara?
No
Any correspondence?
No correspondence.
Okay, thank you. Any special committee reports? Jill, Callie?
So the Community Relations and Engagement Committee met on Thursday, again with the District Positivity Committee, Dr. Hoker and parent representatives from each school. And I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Hoker.
Thank you and good evening. I would like to just point out some of the events that have come from the collaborative effort of the Positivity team and the Community Relations Committee. We have several workshops that are taking place through Parent University. They are all up on our website and were presented in the parent update on Monday evening. Addressing Anxiety in Youth is on January 20th at 6 p.m. Student Motivation and Social Media Use is on January 26th at 6 p.m. In addition, we have yoga and meditation workshops that are taking place throughout the week. All of the links for each of these workshops and events are now also included on the calendar. And that was one of the pieces that came out of the meeting and the collaboration, some input from parents, suggesting making it a little bit easier for you to find some of the resources that we are sharing. So if you just open the district calendar, you'll be able to find the events and the links that go along with it. One of the other suggestions that came from the committee was that we send out our parent updates on Sunday evenings instead of Friday evenings, hoping that it is how you begin your week and keeping the information fresh in your mind. So that is the shift that I'm sure you noticed on getting the update on Monday instead of Friday this week. We also brought back Mr. Citadino's video update. So that's something to look forward to as well. I would like to just remind everyone that we still have our night school going and that we have asked our teachers and staff to offer that to our students as well as our parents as a resource Monday through Thursday. We are not running it this week because we have conferences, but it will begin again on the 25th. At the request of our students, we also created TikTok accounts and Instagram accounts to better communicate with our student population, and we are running events through those social media platforms as well. Our 30 for 30 exercise challenge and our Minute to Win It events are for students and staff, and those are being run through those platforms. I think that covers everything from the meeting right now. And we'll continue to provide you with additional updates as we meet again. Our positivity team will meet next week, and then we'll schedule another community relations committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hoker. Okay.
We don't, and as Dr. Hoker said, we don't yet have a date for another committee meeting, but that will be advertised.
Okay. Very good. All right, seeing no other committee reports, we can move on to hearing of the residents on agenda items only. Mr. Parton, do you want to just go over the rules?
Yeah, just briefly to remind the members of the public that to make sure everybody gets heard and make sure that we have uniform opportunities for everybody, we're going to enforce bylaw 167. 5-minute limitation on everybody. No one speaks twice before everybody has had a chance to speak once. And the aggregate time for any member of the public is 5 minutes. Also, while Mr. Cittadino may provide some information as based upon what the question may be, this is really supposed to be a public comment section. So it is not supposed to be an argument or a back and forth. It's supposed to be input from the public. So with those in mind, that will keep things workable for everybody and give everybody an opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much. So again, hearing of the residents on agenda items only for this section. And, you know, for any items that you need to discuss will be open at the end of the meeting. So I see we have one hand raised. If you can just unmute yourself, Ashley Quinn. If you can unmute yourself and just, your name is Ashley Quinn. I was going to tell you to state your name, but it's Ashley. Just unmute yourself. Ashley. Okay, Ashley put her hand down. Okay. Anybody else? Agenda items only. And again, if you are not on the Zoom meeting and if you want to call in, I have on the screen the dial-in number, the webinar ID, and the password, and you just have to click *9 if you'd like to speak. Okay, so seeing no one with their, oh, what? No? Yes, no? Okay, seeing no one with their hands raised, I will close the hearing of the residents for agenda items only, and we will continue on. Just have to figure out how to, I just have to figure out how to get this out of, I'm going to stop sharing and start sharing again. Hold on. I apologize for my lack of technical skills. I will get there. There it is. Good. Okay. Nothing on policy. Can everybody? No, you can't see that, can you? I'm sorry. There we go. Now you can see it, right? Okay, nothing on policy. So let's move on to curriculum and professional development, items 1 and 2. Can I have a motion to move items 1 and 2?
Burns will make the motion.
Okay, can I have a second?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, hold on a second. Okay, any discussion?
Yes, on item 2, I do not see any dollar amount attached to that. I'd like to know if there is one and how much it is.
Mr. Mara?
I can answer that. It is an
Yes, Dr.
hourly, it is the hourly rate. I'm just thinking how to answer that. There's an overall amount that is in that fund that was approved earlier in the year. And we add presenters to utilize the funds in that account. I don't know the actual amount that's in the account off the top of my head.
Okay, I would then refer to the attorney. Can you pass this motion without knowing that?
You can, because it's a matter of contract, so it is already a negotiable item that has already been negotiated.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, can I have a roll call, Mr. Mara?
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima, Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes. Okay, athletics. Can I have a motion to move item 1 in athletics?
I'll move it.
Mr. Weber, can I have a second?
Giordano, second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Giordano. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion, Mr. Mayor, can I have a roll call?
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Solikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes. All right, next item is finance.
Mr. Caro,
I'm sorry.
I'm
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. I just want to point out that number 2 on curriculum is also a grant funded account.
Let me go up. Okay. All
Just
right,
for
Mr. Weber.
additional clarification, I
Okay.
just want.
Okay,
All right.
very good. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hoker, for that clarification. All right. Let's go back to finance. Items 1 through 9. Can I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Ms. Ellis Foster, can I have a second?
Giordano, second.
Giordano, I think you got it. So any discussion for finance items 1 through 9?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions on the bachelor's. Give me a moment to find them. This might be a kind of obvious thing, but I haven't looked at the bill list for a while. When I look at the electrical cost account, I notice a significant difference based on the elementary schools, but I think I know the answer anyway. Obviously, the three most expensive buildings are the high school and the two middle schools. After that, it seems that we range from $1,700, $1,600 up to almost $5,000. But when I recognize it now, that would be Shepherd, which has the big gym and the 6 additional classrooms. And I guess the same thing along with McGibbet, which was the biggest school with the biggest gym and Memorial. So I just want Bill to confirm that's probably why there's a difference in those rates, or not the rates, but the billing.
Well, Mr. Weber, I have to get, if you have a question like that, as soon as you see the bill list, I wish you would ask me prior to the meeting because it's difficult for me to answer that question
I
because
understand that. And I
especially with electrical bills, because sometimes what happens is a building will get an estimated bill for 1 or 2 months, and then they get a bill that's the final bill that'll be adjusted for the prior 3 months. But I will get back to you with an answer to that question. I do not have that
and
answer.
I apologize for not letting you know. I just only looked at the list today for the first time.
Okay. Mr. Weber, do you have any other, you said you had a couple things or?
Yeah. I don't know, is this, is item B2 on this list as well? Is that part of the finance list? Summary of out-of-district placements and transportation requests?
Yes.
All right, Joe, my question there is, the student number 37434, there's a $72,280 bill, and it has a termination date, which is already passed. So I'm just curious.
Again, Mr. Weber, I will have to get back to you with an answer on that.
Okay. All right. That's all I have.
Okay. Anything else? Mr. Weber, was that it, or do you have more?
Yeah.
I have a hard time. I can't really hear you that well, so I apologize if you're.
I would separate item B2 for voting purposes.
What? I didn't hear you. What were you separating?
B2.
So that
Schedule
would be
B2.
item number 3, Mr.
Item
Chair.
number 3.
Item number 3. Okay. 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 So you want to separate out item number 3. Okay. Okay. Is that it? Any other discussion? So do we vote so that we vote 1, 2, and then 4 through 9?
Yes.
Okay. So any other discussion on items 1, 2, 4 through 9? Okay. So can we have a roll call, Mr. Mara, for items 1 to 2 and 4 through 9?
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
So resolutions 1 and 2 and 4 through 9 pass. On resolution number 3, Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
No vote.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly,
Yes.
DePrima,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Resolution 3 passes.
Okay. There is nothing in non-certificated personnel office. So we move to non-certificated personnel operational. Just item 1. Can I have a motion for item 1?
I'll move it.
Okay. Ms. Ellis Foster, can I have a second?
I'll move it. I second it.
Mr. Weber. Okay. Any discussion? Item 1. Okay. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Mayor, can I have a roll call?
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Callie,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
Okay, moving on to non-certificated personnel other. Again, just item 1. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Mrs. Ellis Foster. Can I have a second?
Giordano, second.
Thank you, Mr. Giordano. Any discussion on item number 1? Okay, seeing no discussion, roll call, Mr. Mara, please.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Callie,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Solikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
Okay, moving on to certificated personnel. We have items 1 through 11. Can I have a motion to move items 1 through 11, please?
One will move items 1 through 11 for certificated personnel, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. May I have a second, please?
Burns will second.
Thank you, Ms. Burns.
A motion
Can I-
to separate 1 for discussion.
Okay,
That's what I was supposed to say.
You told me you were gonna let me do it, man.
Okay, go ahead.
all right. So wait, so do we separate that 1 now for discussion?
Yes.
Okay, okay. All right,
Okay.
Mr. Weber, it's
Go ahead.
all you.
All right, the item reads to the public, move the board approve the retirement of the following staff members with
Good.
appreciation for their years of dedicated service to the district. Diane McGinn, Old Bridge High School Special Ed, 35 years. Congratulations. Lori Lucci, Old Bridge High School English, and our favorite camera picture taker at every event for 25 years. And Anna Napoli, Jonas Stokes Middle School, LAL, 29 years. So we've got a good average there, close to 27 or 28 years. I wish them all well, health, and enjoy their retirement.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. You took the
You're
words out of my mouth. I worked with 3 of these teachers for many years, and I wish them a lot of luck. Lori Lucci, I had her kids in school, in fact. Diane, I worked with her for quite a few years, and Anna, I met her quite a few times. Congratulations and good luck to you. Thank you.
I know Lori's been very involved with, with every board meeting, and, she comes to the President's Council meetings. So she does a great job, and I wish her well. She's got some grandchildren now that she can have a lot of fun with. So I'm sure she's not going to be bored. And good luck to Diane McGinn and Anna Napoli as well. So, all right. So now any discussion on any other items? No? Okay, so Mr. Mayor, can we have a roll call, please?
Kelly,
Yes. I'm sorry, Joe. I can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Joe.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn, Mr. Dunn,
Yes, I hear you.
and Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 11 pass.
All righty. Nothing in non-certificated state non-certificated personnel transportation. So we're moving on to supplies, equipment, and services, items 1 and 2. May I have a motion, please?
I will move
Anybody?
it.
Miss Ellis Foster. Can I have a
Elmore,
second? Mr. Dunn, thank you very much. Any discussion?
Yes,
Mr. Giordano?
I would like to separate and discuss resolution 1.
Okay, separated for voting?
Yep, and discussion, yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes, so.
Do we do that first, Mr. Mara? I can't hear you.
Joe, we can't hear you.
Discussion first. I'm not sure what's happening, so let's see. Discussion first.
Discussion first. Okay, so you, Mr. Giordano would like to separate number 1 for discussion. So we do that first?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Giordano, the floor is yours.
Yes, yep, thank you. So while we are remote and our children can't attend school in person, and we are in the middle of the biggest transfer of power and wealth in the history of the country, I do not feel that it's proper for us to be voting on these renovations or proposal to these renovations while our children aren't getting the in-person education that they deserve. And I feel that this should be moved towards the future while we have our other priorities straight as to sending our kids back to school safely and making sure that the public is fully aware of everything that we're doing going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to comment or have a discussion on item number 1?
I would like to say something.
Ms. Burns?
So I'd just like to remind everyone that this is a public space, that it's not just used for football or any of our sports. It's something that the entire public can use. And I wouldn't want it to become more dilapidated and then costing us more in the future. So that's just why I'm going to vote yes for this.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Burns. Mr. DePrima?
With all due respect to Mr. Giordano, I totally respect what you're saying about trying to save money, especially at this time. But I don't think remote learning and the pandemic have anything to do with saving money on the field. It's 2 separate issues. And as we have said in the past meetings, I think we have a different opinion on the condition of the field, but I myself have seen it and it's not up to par. And as Ms. Burns said, the longer we wait, it's probably going to be, make it worse and cost more. It is a safety issue too. It's not just for football, as Mrs. Burns said also. It's the centerpiece of town. I don't know how many people utilize it, but I did this summer and there had to be 100 people there on a night, just walking and having a good time. So I'm in favor of fixing it now while we can.
Madam President?
Yes, Mr. Dunn.
So there's a couple of things here. Number one, the money that is going to be spent on this project based upon Milliman's recommendation and specs, that money is coming out of capital funds. And obviously, when we have excessive fund balances and things like that, we are obligated to put money in for major capital improvements. So this money is not coming out of the general fund. It's not coming out of the taxpayers' pockets. It did come out of their pockets, but it was excessive funds that went into capital. And you know what, we have an obligation to maintain our facilities and the facility is having some difficulties, and it's the right time to make the capital investment. It's like Sal said, it is the hub, it is the epicenter of town. Any given night, there are hundreds of residents of the Township of Old Bridge participating and using the facility. And we have an obligation not only to our students, but also the taxpayers to provide them with a Class A facility that's safe. And again, like I said, with the monies that were excessive, we put it out of the fund balance into capital. Those monies could be taken away from us from the governor. It was done by Governor Christie, came in, swooped and took out $4 million from our accounts. So I will not put anything past Murphy at this point. So you know what? We have the money. It's there. I would like to spend it and make the improvements, make sure that we have a Class A facility and that our kids and our residents of Old Bridge get a prime A facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. And would anyone else like to comment on?
Yes, yes, we're not voting on the moving forward with this project. We're basically voting over here on his services for $28,000, what he put into it so far. Am I right?
No,
On
you're
the-
not right. That's not what he put into it so far. This is the development of the plan to have all the specifications and the architectural drawings done to start the project. He hasn't done anything for us other than evaluate the property, but this is only his proposal to develop the plan to redo the stadium field and the track.
But we're not voting on the $800,000 or $900,000 tonight.
No, this is his plan, and his plan will be in effect until further notice. It'll be good for at least a year.
I mean, we have to pay the guy, so I'm going to go along with that. But when it comes time to voting on a deal, because I walked that track, I see very few problems with it. Okay, that's my opinion.
Is there any negotiation on a bill like that, Joe?
Pardon me?
Is there any negotiation on a fee like that? Like you go to a store, sometimes it's $10, I'll give you $8, and they settle on $9. Is there negotiation?
He's the architect of record, and there's a schedule of hourly rates that he charges us for the different people that do work. So when we approve the architect of record, it's approval with a schedule of rates.
Miss Callie, did you have your hand up?
Yes.
I did, but somebody else seems to be speaking. Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Jill.
Go ahead, Jill.
That's okay. We're already aware of the issues with the field. We've had an expert opinion. In some cases, some parts of the field and some parts of the track are dangerous. We've already had this discussion. Now the onus is on us to fix it. God forbid somebody gets hurt. It's not going to get fixed. And Joe, correct me if I'm wrong. This isn't even going to be done until the summer, right?
Well, look here, if depending on what happens with the executive order and remote learning, we could start the project early. It's a project that takes approximately 8 months. So if if at some point the decision is made that the kids are not going to come back to school this year, we would try to start the project earlier so that it could be ready and available on September 1st. We're looking at 7 to 8 months to complete the project whenever we start it. So this would have to bypass it would have to be approved by the budget in the budget hearing in April. But typically in March, when the budget is submitted to the county for approval for advertising, at that point, we should have a pretty good idea whether or not the board approves this project. I'd like to move forward with this as soon as possible.
Okay, so if we started today, 8 months brings us out to August.
Yeah.
Right. So, and by that time, God willing, the pandemic will be, behind us for the most part, and things will hopefully be back to normal. And people are going to be using this facility, especially when the weather is nice. And I just don't feel that we should postpone anything as far as this is concerned, because it opens us up to lawsuits if, God forbid, anybody gets hurt. That's all.
Can I just interject on something that Mr. Mara said?
Sure.
Because I can imagine what he said already starting a stir. From this point, this project, whether students are in school, and I believe they will be, has nothing to do with the use of that. We could move the physical education classes to using the rest of the facilities and fields that are there at Carl Sandburg School, and athletics would have to be moved to some of the other shared service agreements fields that we have, just like it was done when we initially did the field many years ago. So it's not contingent or hinging upon whether students are in session. They only use that as Carl Sandburg as part of the physical education.
Okay. Would anyone else like to make a comment? Mr. Weber, I think you had.
Mr. Weber would.
There you go. Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Weber.
A couple things about the track. My wife and I walk on it through once or twice a week, and the thing that I've noticed is that most of any of the damage I've seen, number one, I don't walk fast enough to ever hurt myself on that track. But the other thing is, when that track was originally installed, it was a 6-lane track. We subsequently modified within a year or two of that so that we could compete for having the state meet, which required 8 lanes on it. I think most of what I've seen of it, and I'm doing this from memory, is that portion where that 7th and 8th lane was attached to the track. So, Bill, my question to you is he looking, are we just looking for a total recommendation for him, or have we asked him to determine what is the specific problem? Is it the 7th and 8th lane? Can we do a repair for that? Because at the end of the day, if it comes anywhere near $800,000, as I heard from around, the question is going to be, you're going to have any prayer to have it in the budget. And obviously, unless we're closing in on a lot of the other districts, I mean, the competitions to state things, which we were not too successful in doing. It may be serviceable if what my assumption is saying, that it seems to be related to those 2 outside lanes on the track. So I totally agree with Mr. Giordano's thinking, and I'm particularly concerned about the size of the budget item it would be. So I would just want us to have a wait and see on this. I would go ahead with, so I'll support doing this, just so that we know we have an intelligent thing for when we come up to the budget, what would be involved, but there are some alternatives. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. The only thing is, Mr. Mara, it's, just to clarify, this is coming out of capital reserves, and we do have, I'm not sure the exact amount that we have in capital reserves, but we definitely have enough money in capital reserves, and that's what it's there for. It's there for capital improvements, replacing a water heater or an air conditioner, or, just things of that nature. And that's what the money is there for in capital reserves. So this would be similar to that type of thing. Am I correct in saying that, Mr. Mara?
Exactly, that type of thing.
Mr. Mara, I'm having a tough time hearing you, and I'm having a tough time hearing Frank Weber.
It is a project that would be funded out of capital reserve. It would not affect the local tax levy for the next year. There are adequate funds to fund this project out of capital reserve.
Yeah.
Did everyone hear that? Matt,
Yes.
Did you hear that? Okay.
Maybe we can send Mr. Weber the architect proposal that we received, so he would understand it better.
Sure.
Okay. So okay, Mr. Weber.
And just to add on to what you're saying, Mr. Carroll, just that the funds from capital reserve cannot go back to general fund where they can fund educational endeavors. They can't fund staffing. That money can't go back and fund school supplies. It can't fund computers, and only can be used for capital reserve site improvement type projects.
Okay. Any other? Kelly?
Mrs. Carroll, yeah. So just a few things. I mean, I think most everybody stated some of the reasons why we should go forward with this. I think the timing is the critical one, that we can do the work when the fields are not being used by sports teams, so that come the fall it's done. And I'm sure, I don't know field maintenance. So, from my eye, it may look well, but I know from the report, there's a lot of the damage or some of the concerns are actually on the field, not necessarily the track, while the track does have some. So that, I rely on the experts, not my assumption that it looks good because when I walk, it looks okay to me. So I look to our experts that did the analysis to say, here's where the areas are. We are well over our warranty on it. And I think, again, now's the time to do it when we have less impact on the sports teams.
Ms. Ellis Foster, that's the point that I was making about linking it to the kids not returning to school, assuming that there's no athletics. And just one further point to support the project, I believe the project began in 2007, was completed in 2008. The useful life of the facilities of the field and the track is maximum 10 to 12 years. So we're 13 to 14 years out.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point that, it's not, let's do it now when it's not really going to impact the students. Okay, does anyone else have any discussion on item number 1? Okay, so should we vote on number 1 first?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so Mr. Mayor, can we have a roll call for item number 1?
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
No.
Mr. Solikowski,
No.
Mr. Weber,
No.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Callie,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
Okay, so now we already have a motion. Any discussion on item number 2? Seeing no discussion. Okay, Mr. Mayor, can we have a roll call for item number 2?
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Callie,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Resolution 2 passes.
Okay, nothing in transportation. We have miscellaneous item numbers 1 through 4. May I have a motion, please, for miscellaneous items 1 through 4?
I'll move it.
Ms. Ellis Foster, can I have a second?
Dunn will second.
Mr. Dunn, thank you. Any discussion?
Mr. Carr, just noting per Mr. Cittadino's report earlier and the board consensus that this is pertaining to option 1 on both years on number 4.
Yes, okay, thank you. So that's the calendar option 1 for both years. Got it. All right, any discussion? Any other discussion? No? All right, Mr. Mayor, can I have a roll call?
Mr. Giordano,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Solikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Callie,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 4 pass.
Okay. Next, we're on to board secretary and board business. Just item 1. May I have a motion, please?
Dunn will make a motion.
Mr. Dunn, thank you very much. May I have a second?
Giordano, second.
Mr. Giordano, thank you. Any discussion? No? Okay, Mr. Mara, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Solikowski,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Callie,
Yes.
Mr. DePrima,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
Okay, now we are on to hearing of the residents on any agenda item. Once again, the rules that Mr. Parton gave at the beginning apply to this hearing of the residents as well. I am going to get up the screen for public comment. Okay, can you all see that screen, the public comment screen? Yes, okay. Okay, so again, hearing of the residents. If you are on the phone, *9 to unmute yourself, *9 to indicate you'd like to speak, and *6 to unmute yourself. First up is Mr. O'Neill. You can unmute yourself.
I just want to clarify, this is on any topic, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Didn't want to speak out of turn again.
Any topic.
My name is Tim O'Neill. I'm the president of the OBEA. Tonight, I would just like to inform the community about a project that the OBA has been working on this year to have communication boards installed throughout the district. For anyone who doesn't know, communication boards give nonverbal children a way to easily and effectively communicate with others. This project involves 130 of these boards being installed in our schools and outside on the playgrounds. So I want to take a minute to recognize the individuals who have contributed to this project. Nancy Coughlin, the OBEA Paraprofessional Unit Director and Pride Chair, acquired the funding for the project from NJEA and worked with OBA members, administration, and SEPTA on the project. Diane Michael and Kim Ventrola from SEPTA collaborated with all parties to make sure that the locations of the boards and the boards themselves would meet the needs of the children. I also want to recognize the speech therapists who designed the actual boards, Allison Weinberger, Stephanie Reed, Annie Pachuki, Christy Robinson, Jennifer Antonazzi, and Jackie McCarty. I believe that administration is currently working to have the boards actually installed. And I just want to thank everyone who contributed to the project.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Neill. That was a great thing that they did. Just such a great collaborative effort. Very nice. Okay, next up we have a phone number. The last 4 digits are 2462. You can unmute yourself, or if you're on the phone, press *6. That's 2462, last 4 digits. You can unmute *6. *2462. I don't even have any other hands raised, so I can't go to anybody else. Okay. All right, one more person. We have one more hand raised. 2462. I will come back to you. Sam Arabia.
Hi, how's everybody?
Hi.
To make a statement. I've been an Orange resident for 28 years. I've had 3 children go through the district completely, and my last of 4 is in high school currently. My wife and I have always seen both the district and Superintendent Cittadino act with the highest level of professionalism. He's always placed himself last and the welfare of our children first as his priority. And I can say this because we've lived here that long. We've been an active member of the community, and we've seen positive growth in both the community and in the school district. And while I appreciate the rights of many members in the community to express their opinions, I also feel it's equally important to state some facts. And it's a fact that any decisions that have made with regards to the pandemic closings, remote learning, and reopening have been made responsibly with a great deal of input and recommendations from the reopening task force, from the remote learning task force, And that's a group of individuals that is comprised of teachers, Board of Ed members, admin staff, union members, and perhaps most relevant, Old Bridge parents. And this is a group's input and collective recommendation that has guided any decisions related to learning in the district during a unarguably unprecedented global pandemic. This group of community members is grounded in scientific fact, and it's guided by the state of New Jersey and recommendations of the CDC. It's most certainly not influenced by any disingenuous statements. It's not backed by rumor or anything that doesn't have scientific data. And in keeping with the guidelines and mottos of Old Bridge High School, I would first like to congratulate all of you for rising above the fray and doing the right thing. And finally, would like to thank each and every member of the task force, Mr. Citadino, and all of the Board of Ed members for guiding our community through this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Arabia.
You.
Okay. All right. Seeing as I have no other hands raised, I'm going to close the hearing of the residents, and we will move on. Let me get the agenda back up. Let's see where it is. Here it is. Okay. Any old business?
I don't know if the item I want to talk about should be under old business or new business, but I'll ask and make my request under old business. The concern that I have is that when this plan was first initially brought out and we had the 3 ABC sections, it was predicated on having a class size, I think, at the elementary of 24, which is not the case. It's a little over 20 slightly. And of course, it gives us 4 hours of instructions. I know there's been a lot of discussion about how many hours we have in Old Bridge in the classroom compared to others. And I know recent references have been made to that those districts are closed well because of the surge that we've had. But I don't think that the fact can be lost that many of those other districts, such as East Brunswick or South Brunswick, have accrued a lot more time in class when we were in the spike situation. And one of the things I had asked for, I had open information on, was the plexiglass, which I was not able to get because my information was deemed not thorough enough. And I subsequently asked, as an incoming board member, to be able to tour the buildings, and I was told that was not possible. It would have to be authorized by the full board. And I'm certainly in a little bit of a quandary because I received from Mr. Citadino about an 8-page piece from the New Jersey School Board Association, which did not have any legal, anything legal attached to it. It was a presentation on what board members should do and not do, followed by the only thing that I see, which is the Code of Ethics. Now, in the Code of Ethics, one of the things it says, my role and all of the board members' roles, is not to administer the district, and I agree with that. But it also says in the same line, it is my job as a board member to see that the district is well run. And of course, that's where the feet don't meet the road. I'm asking as a board member that this board, first of all, and ask this board now, have any of you been in the school within the last couple of weeks and seen that we are totally prepared to accept 14 or 15 kids in an elementary school classroom? And if you have not, I would encourage you to go there. And toward that end, I am asking very specifically for this board to authorize any member of the board, and quite frankly, if some public representatives want to be, they should ask the district itself, to be able to tour safely. There's not a need to be in the classrooms and disrupt any cleanliness in the classrooms, on the assumption that I believe from memory, all of our doors from the halls into the classrooms have some form of a glass panel which will allow you to look into the room. And I think Given the concerns that parents have expressed at recent meetings, that this is not an unreasonable request, and should it not be granted, I just think it's not going to help the transparency of the district. So I'm asking now to make a motion to have the board authorize board members to take a tour of all of the elementary schools and report back.
Not only the elementary schools, Mr. Weber, but also the middle schools and the high schools. I think as board members, taxpayers in this community, we have a right to look at these buildings and see what our kids are coming back to. I agree with you 100%.
Mr. Solikowski, are you seconding Mr. Weber's motion?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Mr. Caro, you have a motion and a second on this ad hoc motion, but I think as part of discussion, we're going to have to talk about the COVID-19 protocols under the road back. So I think, Mr. Cittadino, if you could fill us in on that process.
Can we make sure we're clear on Frank Weber's motion that was seconded by Mr. Solikowski, because I couldn't hear Frank. So I'm not sure what is up for a vote or discussion.
I
Same
believe
here. I had to get up and turn off the heat in my room because I could not hear a word he was saying.
my understanding, and Mr. Weber, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that the motion is for a all board member invitation to do a group tour of the elementary and other schools, and to see by looking into the classrooms through the glass windows on the doors, whether there is plexiglass and what it looks like. Is that a fair synopsis, Mr. Weber?
Correct.
And you have a second by Mr. Solikowski on that.
And I will supply everybody with plastic bags for their feet and for their hands, okay? That's the way it should work. We are residents in this community, we are the taxpayers, and we have to see what these buildings are like.
What is the objective? What is the objective of the Board of Education going in and looking at each and every classroom to see if there's plexiglass up?
I have a bunch of grandkids that go through the system, and I want to see what's going on. These people, there's no transparency on the part of the administration here.
Have you asked Mr. Solikowski?
50 years, excuse me. I'm here for 50 years. This administration is the least transparent from any other that I ever saw. That's it.
Mr. Solikowski, have you asked for any of that information to the administration? Have you specifically asked?
Yes, I have.
And what was your answer?
I never got
What
an
did
answer.
you ask and what was your answer?
Look, I asked and I never got an answer. That's it. It's finished.
Mrs. DeCaro,
Mr. Weber.
I sat in before the election took place. I sat in 2 different Oprah requests to get information, which would have provided how many classrooms are done, how much capacity was increased. If you remember when we were on the ABC plan, one of the reasons you got down to 4 hours was that that plan only said provided for 8 students in a classroom. The information that was given out with that was not on point, in my opinion. That was bounced. I sent it a second time. And, I'm not sure that it was bounced for any good reason other than the fact that I may not have supported the superintendent the first time it was appointed. I hope that's not the case, but, I'm beginning to think that way. The other issue is subsequently when I became a board member again, I asked again, and I was told no, and that every single classroom would have to be cleaned again. And that was the reason. And the other reason was I was told that the board had a support that I could not go in the building as a board member. Now, to my knowledge, since I've been a board member off and on since 1993, I can never recall under any set of circumstances that a board member could not have access to a school, going through channels, talking to the superintendent's office, who then would contact the school principal and allow it. And any protocols that are needed to be followed to maintain the cleanliness of that, which, by the way, in the document that was referred to by the superintendent, it lists visitors as someone that should be, the tacit thing in that is it covers visitors visiting the school. So it's not something that's excluded by the state. So I don't know what the problem is. If there is no issue, if there is no lack of transparency, what's the harm in having the board members see it? That's my position.
Madam President?
Yes, Mr. Dunn.
So, I understand where Frank's coming from, what he's saying. Obviously, the Board of Education, we have the right to ask to see, the facilities and walk through. And I'm in a position where I believe what Frank is saying is that we can do better with, getting the kids back to school. And we need to see, the facilities and see how they can accommodate and what we've done to do that. Now, with that said, I'm on board with getting the kids back to school. I'm with Frank on that point. But my point is that, I'm not going to challenge Dave Citadino and the administration. I think that, that's something which, the board has, an interest, obviously, in the welfare of our children and the facilities. But I don't think it's our position to check and be a check and balance to the administration. Yeah, we can question, but I don't think there's any validity for us going in there and verifying what was done and what wasn't done. We're all on the same page here to get the schools open, to do the right thing. And everyone here wants the kids back in school in the worst way. I think we all know that virtual education is not the answer. The answer is in-person live instruction is the best way to go. And I wish we would have done things differently, but we're here not to point fingers and try to find pitfalls and to get you gotchas. That's not what we're here for. So I feel that for us to go look at these classrooms, I think it's just doing an injustice at this point.
Rich, I will respectfully disagree with you in the fact that the board of the code of ethics I mentioned, the very specific line, says one of our duties as board members is to see that the district.
I can't hear Frank.
Chris, could you put Chris?
Yeah.
Could you quote that item in the code of ethics that I can't?
Yeah, it's section J of the code of ethics. It says that your job as a board member is not to administer the schools, but together with your fellow board members to see that they are well run.
And that is what I'm looking for as the authority to go in and confirm that it's being well run.
Can I just say a few words? Mr. Parton, I first want to ask you the question. What is your legal interpretation of that line to make sure that the school is well run?
Well, there have been hundreds of cases over the years on that very question because this is New Jersey and that sentence is way too short. So, nobody can deal with that. The fact is that like a board of trustees of a private corporation, the Board of Education has the right and probably the responsibility to verify things through you. But the key is through you, and that's true of personnel actions, that's true of facilities matters, and that's true of basically everything that happens in a school district. Chief school administrator has a unique position. So if you are, and it is my understanding that there are no visitors in the schools at all. Your board policy defines board members as being included among visitors to the school. So if you're not including other visitors and there is a public health and safety reason for that, then board members would be lumped in with that. If there's another way you can show interested board members what's going on in the schools, that is a question for the administration.
Well, I will speak from Mr. Weber's question, his email to me from about a week ago. And I know you probably have weighed in with Mr. Mara on any Oprah requests that they've had. Oprah requests do not come by through my office. So Mr. Weber's request, well, it wasn't a request. It was to tell me that he was going to be at a Cooper School at 4 p.m. to do inspections of all elementary schools. And he stated that he's doing it at 4 p.m. so not to interrupt any teachers that are in the schools. So first, that's not a request, it's a directive. And it's a slippery slope when any board member is giving directives, especially when those directives have a financial impact upon the board. just like it was stated, and just like stated in policies, which I shared with him, that board members are only empowered or authorized as board members when they're collective in a meeting. And any action taken by an individual must be approved by the majority of the board to do so. Because this specific impact will have a financial impact. I know that Mr. Weber said he doesn't walk around the track that fast, but for me to believe that he's going to get through all of the elementary schools starting at 4 p.m. and getting across town and getting to the next one and getting up without incurring any overtime for those who supervise our buildings late at night. In some schools, we've cut back on their hours because of the pandemic, so we'd have to be adding back to the hours in which we have people there. It would incur any overtime for any room he visits because of our policy in which our road back, in which every classroom that's visited or you go into, it has to be re-cleaned again before the next staff member comes in. Each door is marked. It has an indicator, says stop or go. When someone goes in the room, they flip it, say stop. The custodian then goes in and follows up. The additional piece is we don't even have teachers, never mind visitors, we don't even have teachers sharing buildings right now when we look at our related arts schedule and so forth, because we're trying to cut down on cohorts. Because when one person goes from one school and communicates with one member in one school and then goes to another school, you are in turn becoming your own little super spreader. You're going to all the schools and picking up whatever that could be possible of COVID in one school and bringing it to the next one. Our custodians don't move. Everybody's isolated to their buildings that they're in, so we can maintain this staffing that we have. Now, I don't know what the fascination is with plexiglass. There in the documentation from the Department of Health and the CDC, it talks about having 6-foot space between learners. It only talks about putting plexiglass in place when you can't have 6 foot of space between learners and instructors. So in certain situations, as directed through the administration of my schools and the staff, plexiglass is permitted. No one has ever denied any plexiglass. No one's turned down the installation of plexiglass or the purchase of plexiglass if it is needed and supported. So in any places it was requested and needed, it was provided for. But to give an example, a plexiglass in front of a teacher's desk, if they are working with students or in person in the classroom, they might as well be teaching from home if you're expecting that the teacher is just going to sit down behind the piece of plexiglass and not get out from the plexiglass and walk around to the class and serve the needs of her learners who are 6 feet apart. Forbes magazine talks about the use of plexiglass and how it may be the biggest waste of money ever invested in schools, because within a year, we're going to have containers full of plexiglass, because schools have spent money on plexiglass, and a lot of the parochial schools have, because they don't have the ability to maintain the 6 feet because they're taking everyone in, because plexiglass stops large droplets of the COVID virus, not the aerosol. The aerosol goes up and around any piece of plexiglass. So you use it in supermarkets, DMVs, places like that where you can't maintain 6 feet of distance. You can't exchange money with a cashier and be 6 feet away. You can't hand over paperwork at a DMV or a sales office and be 6 feet away. So use plexiglass for any large droplets. When you step back beyond the 6 feet, if you're not wearing a mask, the aerosol goes up and over around the plexiglass, unless you have floor to ceiling plexiglass. The problem which we've talked about in depth with everyone, and I don't know why people aren't getting it, we don't have a problem within the building transmission of the virus. We've had it on a bus. We've had it at Miller School where it was different classrooms. So it had nothing to do with plexiglass, and it was inconclusive as whether it came from. All we knew was what didn't come from home. And we had it between custodians who obviously aren't walking around with plexiglass around them at Sandburg School. That's the only places where, while we were open, we were able to document transmission within school. So our measures with the PPE and everything are working. Yes, we have plexiglass in areas where teachers are working closely with students. We have plexiglass in any place where you have to go up and see a secretary or so forth, when you can't maintain 6 feet of distance. But there's not plexiglass between every student in every classroom, because that's not what is required by the CDC and the Department of Health. 6 foot of distance is what they require. Plexiglass will do you nothing when you're beyond 6 foot of distance unless you do floor to ceiling plexiglass. To that question, there has been, I think I spoke to Mr. Mara today, over 36 work orders for plexiglass. Now that's work orders. That's where our glazer goes in and constructs something and fixes it to a surface. That doesn't include the 100+ self-standing units that we've purchased. So where needed, plexiglass is there and nothing has changed. If you want to see a classroom without plexiglass, you'll see it, but you'll see the desks are 6 feet apart. It was easy to put desks 6 feet apart because we had 4 to 6 students in a classroom. That was what the measuring was for. So if you want me to show you a room that doesn't have plexiglass, I can show you that. If you want me to show you a room with plexiglass, I can show you that too. But I cannot allow a board member to give me a directive that will have an impact on the financials of the district. Well, I'll have to pay overtime and someone to follow around and cleaning without the full board knowing it. And this board member knows that. He didn't even copy the board president on the request as required. This is just someone trying to circumvent the system and push his way around. And it's funny because there's different rules of engagement for different items and different areas in which one might be in charge. The minutes from the library board meeting in November 27th state that Mr. Weber spoke about recent changes in the Middlesex County libraries to reduce services due to the spike in COVID cases. Mr. Weber opened the discussion to the board, proposing a reduction in services. I'm sorry, some services. He spoke of maintaining curbside services and full digital services and the need for passport services. He suggested to the board they should discuss computer usage for browsing services. So why is it in that element, COVID's a spike, it's a real thing, and we can trust your expertise as the board president to make decisions to reduce services. But here, where I'm the superintendent of the district, not an elected official or appointed like at the library, I don't have that expertise. And I'm not even requested of it. No one even asked me what you're looking for. You just say, I want it, I want to see it, and that's it. Well, it's a slippery slope when you start pushing people around saying what you want. Because if another board member said, you know, my neighbor's kid wants to practice late with their basketball team, and can you approve the overtime that they might be there without going through the board? He would be the first one to say, well, you approved it for them and it's not the right, it didn't go through the board. There's a proper way to do it. The board policy states that board members must bring their concerns to the full board for any actions. That wasn't done. If you guys do it, that's great. I want to assist anyone in anything you want to do, but know there will be a cost in the way it's being recognized. And doing so, you know, I've already had Mr. Solikowski say, I want to see the high school. Mr. Weber just wants to see the elementary school. Just give a clear directive and we'll try to put something together if that's the board's will, but there will be a cost because we have to follow our own policy and clean the facilities where we go. And I don't advise it going school to school because now you're mixing cohorts. Thank you.
Well, I will.
Mr. Carroll, may I just add
Thank
to
you.
what Mr.
Sure.
Citadino said?
Sure, Mr. Mara.
Some reference, which was unclear to me, that Mr. Weber made about his OPA request. We complied with the letter of the law reviewed by council and provided Mr. Weber with, I believe, 35 or 37 work orders for plexiglass, all the purchase orders that related to the purchases of plexiglass in his OPA request. So I believe his implication was that because he doesn't support the superintendent, we did not comply with the OPA request. We did comply with the OPA request and provided him with the information that he requested. Thank you.
part of
also
the-
just want to
part of the
add
opening
that
part, may I-
there
Dr.
are
Hogan.
videos on the website that were established prior to our returning to in-person learning that show a day in the life of a student at each level. And they show what it looks like to come to school, get on and off the bus, walk into the buildings and go into the classroom. So anyone can view those videos. They are still on the website so that you can see exactly what the schools look like. It's not every classroom in every building, and it's not every single elementary school, but it does give an example of what our schools look like for our students.
That is a single moment of time, and it is done in a single classroom. There are 163 general education classrooms in our elementary schools as of June 2020. Number one, this started when the superintendent devised the first plan along with the committee, I assume, in which they had 3 sections, an A, B, and a C, 4 hours of instruction once a week. 2 days in between, at some point, I don't know whether it's for cleaning or what the purpose was, but at the end of the day, there was also some, in one of his Twitters or whichever it came from, there was a discussion that he was going on to that because he couldn't support the 2 sections because we had class sizes that were 24, so he divided it into 8. My question being asked is, when we had an opening plan for January 19th, now booked back to February, you're not going to be able to put 8 kids in a class. And he predicated his analysis of why that was the case. He said our classrooms are small, which they are because most of those buildings were built in the 1960s. So my concern and question, and still is, do you have the ability to put more desks in those rooms to get up to a practical count of 12 or 14 kids in the building and have them properly protected without putting barriers between any of those classes? I think he acknowledges the fact is he doesn't need to do it. He's right, you only need 6 feet, but CDC and the state of New Jersey says if you can't maintain the 6 feet, then you do masks, which we do already. And if you can't maintain advanced to a satisfactory level, you put barriers in. That's not my recommendation. That's from the CDC. That's from the state of New Jersey. So my question could be asked simply, but I can't seem to ask a simple question of the superintendent. The reality is, my question still becomes, if we get up to that number of students, we had 55% in the survey and 55% of the 75% who were going to go. We don't know what the other 25% is going to be, but if it turns out to be 55-45 among those 3,500 kids, that's over 1,700 kids in those 163 sections. So you're going to be well over 10, 12, and it's going to vary by school. I don't think the public is not certainly ready for that. And I will tell you, you don't need to go in the building. Just pull the blinds up. You can look in through the windows. I've already done it. And there is nothing else in place that I can see in where I've been. And I welcome all the board members to do it for themselves. Are you prepared to accept the additional kids that are going to come under a new configuration? And my suspicion is they are not. And I think that the parents of this district need to know. If it's true, let's let the superintendent deal with it. If it's not true.
So what I'm hearing, I'm actually hearing a question right now, Mr. Weber, so that's good. So there's a question. So the question is, are we prepared to have the students back in a safe manner, following CDC guidelines in the AABB model? Is that your question?
Yes.
Because I believe that can be answered.
At the increased amount of kids in the room, because he stated early on with Plan 1 that he had a limit to 8 students in the class because of the configuration of most of the schools.
Okay, so that's a question. So, Mr. Cittadino.
And I will state it's the first time a question's been asked other than a direct demand. So The question is asked, and yes, we believe there will be. Now, parents will have to, all we've done so far is take a survey, similar to what we did before we opened the schools in October. We asked for a survey and we based our plan based upon that. And then parents had to actually register or commit to that survey and say, I'm going to. And based upon the survey, we can do that. And the parents will commit. If something changes and we have to put plexiglass other places, we have plexiglass. We can put in other places. But our goal is always to maintain the CDC guidelines and Department of Health guidelines in which we've used, because it's more practical, because children are not plants. You just can't put it behind a piece of plexiglass and ask it not to move for the 4 hours that it's there. So the 6 foot of distance and trying to maintain that is the best measure to go. And we will do that. And that is something that you don't have to worry about, because I'm the superintendent of schools and I will be basing it upon my submission to the state based upon my certificate as the CSA of the district.
But I note that you prefaced your answer with the 2 words that said will be, which means that it seems to say you're buying by that language that they.
Mr. Weber, maybe you didn't hear me. We based our plan
I
right
did
now
hear you, and that's
on
why I am
the
speaking. I'd like to
survey.
finish
Because
speaking
also all we can do
before
is
you
serve. I
interrupt
can't
me.
commit a parent to an answer when there's still numbers that are out of control. When we ask the parents to commit to it based upon the survey, it will be in place where we can use 6 feet of distance. If there's an area where we can't, trust me, a teacher, the OBA will be all over me. They're not going to have to worry about you being on top of me. They'll be on top of me if there are students that are closer to them within 6 feet and there's no plexiglass.
So were you ready to proceed on January 19th?
I always have to be ready. I didn't have to be ready when you became a board member.
So it was long before you were ready.
All right, so the
In any
reason,
event-
yes,
in any
there were
event,
a
the
lot of
question-
reasons why the task force chose to extend the date for us to go back. And it wasn't that we were not ready, because I actually, because you know what we do is we ask. So I actually had a conversation with Dr. Hoker about this, and she told me, yeah, we are absolutely ready. That wasn't what the problem was, and that's not the reason why we're not going back on the 19th. The reasons were the numbers, we're at a high risk, and staffing issues, correct, Dr. Hoker? Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
so,
just to remind everyone, we were in school. We didn't close down because we were not prepared. We closed down because too many staff members and students were in quarantine and very few students were coming into district.
This is a long-term concern. When the first plan came out, the ABC plan, and I know it was stated in previous meetings that all of the other districts are closed, and that is true. With this spike, many districts have gone to the remote platform. But from the day the school closed in March to the day that we are now, many districts around us have had a much higher in-school participation level than we have had. And getting back to all of that, simple observation. Just pull up the blinds in the schools a couple of feet and let the board members look for themselves. Shouldn't be any problem with that, Dave.
okay. Would anyone else? So, Mr. Weber, I think you've made your point, and I think everyone understands what you're trying to say. So let me just see if there's any other board members that.
Kara?
Sure, Ms. Ellis
Yes,
Foster.
thank you. So a few things, trying to wrap up this conversation. It was also always, I believe, the plan of the task force in our phases to go from the ABC to the AABB.
Always.
So this is not something that we just came up with. So this was actually the part of the plan. Also, if I go back to what our role is as board members, and I find it extremely disheartening that there are members of this board who think that this administration would open schools and put anybody's health at risk. We would not put our teacher. Can I continue to talk, please?
I will again give you that courtesy.
Mr.
which I
Weber,
wasn't seen
Mr.
on
Weber, Mr.
Can I
Weber.
please say my point? Please let me speak. We let you speak, Mr. Weber. We let you speak. Let me speak. As a person who was on the task force, I can maybe shed a little light. I mean, you may not respect what I'm saying, but please give me that opportunity. The task force looked at this, and it was that. As members, and I know this administration, I know these people, they would never open a school and put any of our children at risk. And the thought that anybody would think that would be true is very upsetting. Now, as board members, and our role is to give direction to our administration, and we rely on them to implement. I know when Mary Ann Friedman, our New Jersey School Board rep, talks about it as not putting our hand in the cookie jar. Me looking at a room, I'm not qualified to say what that room should have. That's why we have facility experts. When we went through the task force and all the meetings, a lot of the information is out on the website. So I believe there is transparency. I know anytime a request is made for data, it is provided. I think you have to maybe be specific about what specifically are you looking for, but it's always provided. So to give that impression that it isn't is just not accurate. Also, our goal is when we put it into their hands, they have to implement it. I don't know how many cases of cleaning solution we need. They have that, and they've never given cause that it's not happening. So I think it's a shame when the time we really should be working together, trying to get the schools open, that these kind of issues are coming up. So I don't know if there's going to be, if we want to just get onto the vote and, but our role is not to go into schools and decide for ourselves based on what we see of what needs to be done.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ellis-Foster. Mr. DePrima?
Thank you, Ms. Carroll. I've made my feelings known about returning to school. That's not even the issue. I have every confidence and support Mr. Cedino and his staff on whether the rooms, the buildings, the hallways, the basements, whatever, will be ready. I never even had a question about that. I am sure when the directive is given that school can reopen, that the buildings will be safe. I'm not really even sure why that's a discussion. I trust you and your staff's judgment. I am sure when children are back in school, they will be safe.
Okay. Can I hear from any other board member that would like to speak and share their opinions that hasn't spoken yet? Mrs. Burns?
Okay, so I just had a question about the Every Student Succeeds Act. I don't know if Dr. Tui or Mr. Barton can answer this question. I'm assuming then that visitation for parents during the school year or observations, that is also all going to be suspended? Because if we're not allowed in the building, parents aren't allowed in the building, are we suspending rights, or how does that work?
Well, you're not suspending or violating anybody's rights. Let's not go down that road. You have the opportunity to do it as you've done core education by alternate means, by remote platforms, etc. So Dr. Tui could speak to how you're doing it, but you do have those options.
I want to be perfectly clear about one item. My singular concern is that when we expand to the capacity to accept additional children in the kindergarten schools, the K-5 schools, I want to make sure that under CDC and New Jersey Health Department guidelines, that those protections are there. Ideally, 6 feet is what you want. CDC says that. But they also say when you cannot do it, you use masks, and if that still doesn't satisfy it, you use barriers. I'm advocating for the health of the kids and the protection of them within the ability to have the proper spacing to get it done. Now, when the presentation was made for the ABC program, we went to that because we had 24 kids, allegedly, in the K-5 school. We did not. June 2020, look at the enrollment, you hit a little over 20.6. So that was a misrepresentation. Maybe it was an accident, maybe it was intentional, I don't know. But the reality is, that's where we were. 8 students in a class. And of course, we haven't hit that, I don't think, in very many days. We don't have the enrollment. Do you get enrollment reports that tell you how many kids are reporting to schools that's shared with the public in general, or any of that? I'm trying to ensure that the kids who are going to come back under the AABB version are properly protected. And right now, you're scheduled to go into that sometime in February, I believe it is. And my question is, are those protections going to be in place?
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Would anyone else like to speak? Miss Kelly. You're muted, honey.
Sorry, I can't really think of anything that I would add to what Ms. Ellis Foster or Mr. DePrima has said. But I just wanted to clarify one thing, because I do work very closely with our Human Resources Department in my office. It's not 6 feet and if not 6 feet, then a mask. It's 6 feet and a mask. It's not an either or.
And they're in, I didn't say it's either or, that's what are in place right now. You already have that in place. I'm talking about when it becomes more of a risk because the room is small and the kids, if you're going to put 14 chairs in there, you're going to have a different level. That's all I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying, but I did hear you say twice, if you can't maintain 6 feet, then a mask. And I just wanted to clarify for anybody else on the board.
And I suggest you read the CDC guidelines.
I think
Okay,
I'm still
Mr.
speaking.
Weber.
That it's 6 feet and a mask.
Okay.
That's all.
We can go round and round and round on this topic, but I would like to, everybody else have we heard from everybody else? I think we have a motion on the floor, and I think we should move the vote. So unless anybody, yeah, let's just move the vote. Mr. Merrick, can we have a roll call? Let's just clarify the motion.
Yes, please.
Yeah, can we clarify the motion that's on the floor? Mr. Merrick, I can't hear you.
Why don't I give it a shot?
Thank you.
The motion is Weber, seconded by Solikowski, for a all board member tour of the elementary schools and the high school, possibly other schools, to inspect or verify through windows that there is plexiglass in some or all classrooms.
Can you clarify, is it through when you're internally in the building? Because Mr. Weber talked about being outside the building, I think.
Yes, the motion that was made was to go inside the building.
Mr. Parton, could I clarify? I'm not mandating a board tour for everyone. I'm asking as a single board member and any other board member who would like to participate to do so.
Yes, it's an
And
opportunity.
Yes, and I'll also mention in the CDC guidelines and all of that, they also mention when visitors should be provided access to buildings as well. Now, that may be not New Jersey state law, whatever the case may be, but that's what's coming out of the CDC. And all I'm saying is, there's no need to go into the classrooms. Let me ask a question of the superintendent. Do all of our schools, our elementary schools, have doors from the hallway into their classrooms, which have a glass panel in them?
Every classroom has a door that the glass varies in size.
All right, so there's no need to go in the classroom. So that removes one of the objections to it. And I just want people to be aware of that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weber. So again, we have the clarification. Mr. Parton, I'm sorry, just read that one more time, just because.
An opportunity for board members to go on a tour of the school buildings, including the elementary and high schools, and to inspect from the hallways, the internal hallways, the classrooms. So in voting here, yes means you authorize the tour into the schools. No means you do not authorize the tour into the schools.
And this is just for this one time, correct?
This is a one-time only question that is on the table, yes.
And we would work it out with the administration for times, because a lot of people work in the daytime, they can't make it there, okay?
Let's cross that bridge if we get to it, Mr. Solikowski.
I understand, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Merrick, can I have a roll call, please?
I hope you can hear me. Ms. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Callie,
No.
Mr. DePrima,
Can I preface my vote with an explanation? I have, as I said earlier, I have every confidence that the schools will be safe if and when we go back.
I can't hear you.
I have every confidence, as I said earlier, that the schools are and will be safe. I'm not worried about that. I don't care about during the schools. I am not questioning that. But I do feel if that's what Mr. Weber is looking for, then I have to say yes, yes.
so was that a yes, Mr. DePrima?
Yes.
Ms. Ellis Foster,
No, because I believe it oversteps our role.
Mr. Giordano,
Yeah, yes.
Mr. Silikowski,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Happy 5 yes.
Mr. Carroll,
No, because I also believe it oversteps our role as board members.
the yeses are 5, the nays are 4, the motion passes.
I didn't get a chance to vote there, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Done.
Mr. Dunn, I'm sorry.
Wow. I guess, anyhow, just to elaborate and to make very clear, yeah, I feel that, you know, by us going into the buildings, taking a look, I think it's usurping the superintendent's authority. You know, again, I disagree with the findings of the reentry committee, and I don't totally agree with Mr. Cittadino on, you know, the way we're approaching our COVID situation with in-person learning. However, I'm not going to usurp the authority of the superintendent. I think Dave has done a fabulous job with making sure these buildings are safe, and unequivocally no.
Okay, so I repeat, the yeas are 5 and the noes are 4, the motion passes. My apologies, Mr. Dunn.
No problem, Joe.
I do want to just clarify for the board members and for the administrators that this tour is all that was acted on. This does not change the power balance, nor does it change anything in the road back documentation. So there's not going to be a binding directive that comes out of this tour. It is simply
Understood.
for the information of the board members.
Understood.
Thank you, Mr. Parton. Okay. Do we have any other old business or new business?
I think I have new business. So, Mr. Parton, can we write a policy for maybe seeing, you know, building tours in the future, maybe creating some kind of outline on when we can request or how long, how many schools, things like that?
You have a general board policy on tours of the schools. It is your visitors to the schools policy. I want to say it's 9140 or 9410.
9241.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor.
Right, so as board members, we follow that?
Yes, board members are in the first paragraph of it. It says that members of the public, including members of the board.
Okay.
So I don't know that you need anything more than that, but as a policy committee, we could take a look.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Ms. Byrne. Anybody else have anything for old or new business? Mr. DePrima.
I just want to congratulate the retirees, but especially Mrs. McGinn and Mrs. Lucci. My children both had them. Mrs. McGinn is here.
Can't hear you.
I don't know what's wrong. I just wanted to congratulate all the retirees, especially Mrs. McGinn and Mrs. Lucci. Mrs. Lucci has been an asset to the board for as many years as I can remember. And Mrs. McGinn has been an asset to the peer group. My children both had her, and it was memorable time. And I thank you both for your time. And whoever was in charge and whoever partook in that video in the beginning, it almost brought me to tears. It was really nice. That's why we do this. It's nice to be appreciated, and we appreciate you for doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DePrima. Would anyone else like to say anything? Old business, new business, go to the order.
Madam President?
Mrs. Cal. Oh, okay. Mr. Dunn. I'm sorry.
No, Jill can go first. Let
Go
Jill
ahead. Go ahead, Jill.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. I too, as Mr. DePrima said, I just wanted to congratulate the retirees and thank the people who put that presentation together. He said it almost brought him to tears. I'm a little bit mushier, although you're pretty mushy. So it did bring me to tears. And like he said, it's nice to be appreciated. And I would also, I don't even know if he's still logged on. I would also like to thank Mr. Arabia for his comments earlier. I have heard from a lot of many, I'm going to say many, parents who have supported our administration's decision to hold off on the reopening of school. But because, and I'm going to keep this brief, I had a longer thing to say, but parents have reached out in support of administration's decision and the board's decision to delay the reopening of school for the safety of their children. And I have asked several parents if, they would speak to so that the board could hear, both sides. I know we had a lot of parents speak for the reopening of school, the sooner reopening of schools. And I appreciate anybody who comes forward and speaks on behalf of their children and fights for what they think is in their best interests. But I just wanted to thank Mr. Arabia because most of the parents that, or rather all the parents that I spoke to that were in favor of the delay in reopening the schools were afraid to come forward because of some of the behavior that has gone on and the way people were treated when they did come forward and speak positively. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Callie. Okay, Mr. Dunn.
First, I want to sincerely thank the wonderful elementary school students who thank the Board of Education for our service. I know that we give a lot of hours and we do a service to our children in our township, and we do put a lot of time in, and it's always refreshing, and it gives me a great feeling to see people recognize what we do, and especially the students. And when they brought back Board Member Appreciation Week, it's always a good feeling month. It's a great feeling, and you know what? I love doing this. This is something that I've been doing almost 10 years, and I'm hoping that I can continue being a board member, even though I have other responsibilities that take a lot of my time. So I appreciate Dave for that gesture of recognizing what we do. And of course, we don't get paid. We put a lot of hours in, but it's not about money. It's about a reward. It's about getting the satisfaction of doing the right thing for your community. I just want to remind my fellow board members that we are on a slippery slope. We're treading water here. And when we have individual agendas that we're trying to push, that's not healthy. And, they can be a very, very bad recourse. And we could set a very poor precedent. And, we have to be united. We need to work together. And our goal is to do the best possible for the children of this district and the taxpayer. But when we start having individual vendettas and when we have individual issues that we want to push, that's not healthy and that's not going to be tolerated. There is, recourse if a board member is starting to push an individual agenda. And we need to work together for the betterment of our district and our children in our town. We need to understand that these things can be a problem. And I'm just asking all my fellow board members to remember that we need to not have personal agendas. I'm sorry, I'm at the firehouse. So we need to remember that we have to stay focused on what we need to do as individuals and for the district and not for ourselves. And if there's any personal vendettas out there, again, it's going to affect us adversely, and it's going to be a very difficult thing for us to get over as a unified group. So please, let's focus on what's best for the children and not as individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Would anyone else like to say a few words?
Yep.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes. Well, first, congratulations for the board certification from last year's board, including Miss Lent. Those were a lot of very good hours that I've experienced during that time. And all right, I'm looking at another tab right now. The problem with separating the capital reserves and trying to move that to the general fund is NJ 18A 22 8.2. So that's the roadblock that most people should know. If they didn't know that already, they could email me or look it up and they'll find that out. And we'll see where that goes in the future. And of course, good job, Mr. Caro, for your first regular meeting as board president. So good job. And that's it. Thank you very much for everyone that attended. Thank you.
Thank you, Sal. Anybody else? Ms. Sellis Foster.
Yes, thank you. Again, yes, thank you everyone for those posters. Those were just wonderful. And I do also want to thank again what Mr. O'Neill had called in about of the communication boards. And I think that displays what Old Bridge is about. That's the best of us. We had our teachers and our SEPTA parents and our staff working together to create something that is making it better for our students. So I really wish we could start embracing that a little bit more. And that's why we're here, is to take care of these kids, not fight amongst ourselves. We all should have that goal. So I thank everyone who is involved in having those. The boards are fabulous. I know they're going to make a big difference to the students. I also did have several people reach out to me about the current plan. And so I thank them. And so I think we just really should be focusing on these positive attributes of our community and continue going forward doing that. So, and I thank again, Dr. Hoker and Mrs. Kelly from the, with the Positivity Committee, Community Relations. I think we had a great discussion in that meeting. We were able to talk about issues in a very productive way. The parents on that board had some great ideas. And so I really wish we would concentrate more on how we can work together. And really when we do, we achieve amazing things. So I look forward to hopefully continuing maybe more in a better spirit of collaboration going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sellis Foster. So, okay. So
I'd like to speak, Jill.
Sure, Mr. Weber.
Again, I'll echo what Kelly said. I want to thank the OBEA and the NJEA for their monetary contributions and their efforts for this program that's going to help with communication for children who need it. I think that's a wonderful endeavor, and they should be heartily congratulated, plus with any staff that contributed or public as well. It's well done. I like to think that all 9 people on this board have the same agenda when it comes to COVID-19, which is to get the children back to school as quickly and as safely as possible. We may take different positions on how it is to get there. That's why we have 9 of us, so we can have 5-4 votes. So that is my agenda, and none only. I don't have any vendetta against anybody. And I didn't gather a group of 5 people or 4 other people who voted the same way. They can't all be part of an individual agenda. So I appreciate their support, and I will work collaboratively with the board whenever I can. I have a record of 18 years of having served on this board and accomplished some marvelous things during that time I was there. And having an agenda was something that ever have been mentioned with my name previously. So let's go forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weber. So I am going to end on a positive note. I did not share this. I should have probably shared it when we were talking about the Positivity Committee, but I'm going to share it now because I'd like to end on a positive note. I happened to be talking today to the guidance counselor from Carpenter School. I had gotten to know him over the years as a board member, just seeing him, around, and he's also a big animal advocate, as am I. So, he reached out to me today and he wanted to let me know how absolutely excited he is about Wellness Wednesdays and how he is really brainstorming to come up with different things for the students on Wellness Wednesday. The poor guy, broke his foot. So, you know, even with a broken foot, thankfully he's virtual, so he can still do all of these things, and it's an awesome thing. But I asked him if I could share this with all of you tonight, and you know, he of course spoke to, you know, the principal, and all is good. So he's planning on doing a virtual field trip by grade level each Wednesday to an animal sanctuary farm in North Jersey to meet and learn about the animals. So there's an animal sanctuary farm. They take in farm animals, and you all know, all my board members know how I feel about those, you know, the animals. And so all the students, and it will be by grade level. So he's planning on doing that for an activity. And the other thing is he's going to do a kindness challenge. He's going to have each Wednesday, he's going to have students and their families complete a kindness challenge and post it on social media to promote helping others through the Old Bridge community. They're going to give out prizes for the families that, you know, complete the most challenges. So I just wanted to share that. You know, he called me up and he was just so excited about, you know, the Wellness Wednesdays and, you know, getting everybody together and the positivity. And it was very, I just needed to, I felt like we should end our meeting on that positive note. We have so many positive things going on in this district, as spoken about, you know, in our positivity committee, and just so many positive things. And I would really like to try to focus on all of that. And you know, let administration take care of the business at hand. We will oversee them, but they are doing, in my opinion, a fantastic job at administering all of the programs. So I trust them to do their job. So that being said, I believe, Mr. Parton, we are no executive session, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so I am going to ask for a motion for adjournment. Anybody?
I will motion.
Okay, so Burns first, Ms. Ellsworth second.
Favor,
Okay,
Aye.
all in favor, aye.
opposed, abstentions. Good night, everyone.
All right, thank you all for coming. Thank you to all the participants.